doesn't know me, my name is Christina, and I help single women heal their relationship with themselves and fall in love with their life again. And today I've invited Amber Breanna to chat to us about the power of our emotions and the power of our words. And Amber is a leader and entrepreneur and a motivational speaker, and she helps people to operate in their truth instead of fear. So I'm really excited to have Amber here with us today and share a little bit about her story. Amber, over to you.
Hey, so I'm really happy to be here. I'm really excited to start talking more about this information, because I just know that it'll help a lot of people, like a lot of women, especially me before. This is the kind of information, the kind of conversations I definitely needed. So a little bit about me. I'm 26 years old. I'm from San Marcos, Texas. And when it comes to my story and healing, the reason why my message is being able to operate from fear instead of love is because I operated out of fear for a long time. Like honestly, probably for the past 24 years, 25 years. And it wasn't until last year where I really started honing into my growth to really start transforming my mind and my emotions. And so the reason why I started to really get into healing and transforming my mind is because last year I had a really big defining moment where I was I was going through a really hard breakup. And I identified myself a lot with that relationship, and I identified myself a lot with that person. And so whenever we broke up and I found myself like in the middle of the pandemic, like all alone, I started realizing and I started to have to just deal with all my shit, basically. Because I
Mhm.
realized that I was in this position before, and that and this was, how can I say, like long coming. Like I knew what I was doing, like how I was self sabotaging. And that defining moment for me was really just, I knew that I had to make a choice. That either I was going to continue to feel miserable and feel sad and feel depressed and not know why, or I was going to finally make some changes within my life to do it. About 5 years ago, before all of this, when I started my personal development journey, I was introduced into network marketing, and that's when I started to learn about personal development and learn about emotional development and stuff. And when I really started to hone in on emotional development is when I started to get into spirituality. And so that has been like a big factor within my life. And I joined a group called Sacred Circle, which is a spiritual development like membership, like group community of women. And in that circle, in that space, I learned so much about spirituality. But little did I know that me joining that group, me calling forth this new information, calling forth this new reality that I wanted to create, I had to dig up all old bunch of stuff before I could
Mhm.
start creating this like whole new life. And so I started that around 2018. And last year, on 2020, it was pretty timely that it was about time that I actually started doing something differently, because I realized that I had called forth that entire situation. I was asking for change, I was asking for growth, and I knew what I needed to do logically, but emotionally, I realized that I just wasn't able to get there. I was too emotionally attached, too codependent on my relationship. And it wasn't until I had completely lost it all that I was like, oh, I have no choice but to finally heal. And so last year when I went through that, I felt I was prepared. I prepared, but I wasn't prepared for it. Like obviously I wasn't
Mhm.
prepared for the breakup or for the separation. But whenever I was in it, I was like, okay, like, this is the stuff you've been knowing that you needed to do, and you could have done it this whole time, but you didn't. So now you're gonna have to do it. And so last year I did the work. Like I did all the spiritual work and emotional work it takes to heal. I spent time with myself. I learned myself. I learned who I was. I explored my childhood. I went to therapy. I like sat with all those emotions, and I sat with all the reasons why I thought the way that I thought, why I had certain beliefs. And then after I went through all that, I realized that I wanted to let all that stuff go and I healed through it. And then I started to focus on what I wanted next for my life. And then after that, then I went through the process of planting those seeds and continuing to do the work. And now, honestly, a year later, I'm in such a better place. It's ridiculous. Literally,
Mm,
like 1 year ago today was probably like 2 months after our like initial breakup. And so I
mhm.
was like in the thick of it. It's crazy because I feel like I'm having like this, I don't know, like some spiritual surreal moment because I started taking like a lot of pictures and just like recording myself randomly last year just because I was like alone and we were in quarantine. And I'm like going, I you get memories and I feel like I'm looking at those memories and I'm like talking to my past self. And I'm just like,
Mhm.
I'm like, keep going, you're gonna get better. I'm like looking at myself. It's just so crazy. But yeah, that's my story, and that's how I've been able to just really transform my mind and like the trajectory of where my life is going, and honestly, change the trajectory of like my entire family line and generation. Because
Mhm.
through that healing, I realized that my codependency and the way that I believed about myself and my emotions, my mother felt that way, and my grandmother felt that way, and my great grandmother, and my aunts, and this was like a whole thing.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay, wow. What a story, what a transformation, and lots of information that you shared there, lots of nuggets that we could dig into. I'm going to choose just a few of them, the ones that I feel might help the audience a bit more than the others. Not that everything that you said wasn't valuable, everything. I think we could definitely do multiple interviews and every time dig into different aspects of what you actually did. But I think one of the really inspiring things that you did was actually that you understood that in all of this we do have a choice and we can transform not only our mindset but we can actually transform and change our lives, but that is only possible if we understand who we really are. I would like you to speak a little bit on this because I know that you really talk a lot about the power of I am. I understand that if we really truly understand who we are and we put ourselves in a position to actually make the choices that will actually change our lives in the way that we have imagined it. Would you like to speak a little bit on that?
Yeah. So whenever I started the healing process, I started to read a bunch of books and try to figure out how to heal. Like, where do I need to start? And I realized that it just kept saying over and over again that you needed to start with the truth of who you are. And at first, I was like, what does that mean? Like, truth? What is the truth? Everyone kept talking about the truth. I was like, where is this truth at? What is that? And then finally, the more that I kept learning and the more that I kept like talking to God and talking to myself and figuring it out, I realized that the truth of who you are is just who you say you are. And so then once I got that down, I was like, oh, so I am who I say I am. That's what the truth, that's what I learned, what I believe is the truth of who you are, is who you say you are in this moment. You can feel depression, you can feel fear, but you can also stand in your truth and say, I feel fear, I feel depression, but I am someone who is strong and I am someone who is working through these emotions.
Mhm.
And it's a little bit complex to really understand like the truth of who you are because you are in every single moment like constantly changing and you're evolving and we're like multidimensional and we feel different feelings in different times. And so I realized that the truth is really who you say you are, but who you need to be for yourself, like in that
Mhm.
moment to get through, like to the next moment. If you're
Mhm.
going through a very hard time, and it could be anything. It could be from you going through a breakup, or you dealing with a death, or just like in general, or just like going through traffic throughout the day. You know what I mean? When something is just frustrating you, and you are in a place where you just about to lose your composure
Mhm.
Really? And then you have to remind yourself, okay, who am I? Like, what's really going on right now? I'm feeling fear, I'm feeling rejection, I'm feeling triggered. Am I somebody who identifies with this stuff? No, I'm somebody who can get through this stuff. And so when I talk about the power of I am, I realize that, again, like we are who we say we are. So we have to really hone in on who do I want to be? Who do I want to be? What kind of person do I want to be? Like when I imagine this woman who's who's wealthy, who's rich with family and connection and relationship and love and abundance, like who is that? And so I started to break down that person really detailedly and like her qualities. What does she wear? What does she say? What does she do? What does she smell? What does she eat?
Mhm.
And I started breaking that down in each area of my life really specifically. And I just started claiming that to be who I was. And one thing that like I want to tell people is I feel like people think when they hear manifestation and all this stuff, they think it's like magic. If you just start to say this stuff, then it'll start to automatically come true. But it's not that it just magically comes to life. It's like whenever I woke up and I started saying my affirmations, I started saying like I am healthy, I am wealthy, I am rich. I create $10,000 every single month. I'm fit. I started to realize that I was saying that all morning. So when I went throughout my day and I started making decisions for my life, I wanted to make decisions that aligned with what I was saying. If I was
Mhm.
waking up saying
Mhm.
I'm healthy, I'm beautiful, but then I go and I eat really unhealthy food, I'm going to feel some sort of conviction. And it's that
Mhm.
conviction that's the the trigger to you making a new decision. And that's how your
Mhm.
affirmations change your habits and change what you do. It's like a whole process.
Yeah. No, I understand. It has to be in alignment with what you say. So your actions have to actually mirror what you're actually saying. So you can't just be spelling affirmations all day long without your actions then actually mirroring exactly what you've said that you are. You also spoke a lot about emotions and feelings. Obviously, when people go through a breakup, people are in a difficult relationship, a lot of feelings come up, feelings of unworthiness, feelings of fear, feelings of despair. Can you speak to what the purpose of our emotions are? Are they some kind of guide? How do we actually, what's like a healthy way to deal with our emotions?
So, what I learned was really huge for me because I'm someone who has a lot of emotions. Like, I feel my emotions extremely deep and I feel all kinds of stuff. And I'm really, I guess you could say I was really led by my emotions. I identified with them a lot. And so
Hmm.
once I finally learned that the way that I was feeling was causing me to make certain actions, and I started to really diagnose what our emotions were, I realized that, well, I learned that our emotions are indicators. They're here to indicate whenever something is out of alignment with who we are. So I started to realize like whenever we're feeling fear, whenever we're feeling guilty, whenever we're feeling rejection or feeling scared, then those feelings are there to tell us that whatever is going on in our reality right now to make us feel those feelings is out of alignment with who we are, or yeah, it's basically out of alignment with who we are, because it could be even like, say you're feeling guilty for something simple, something like eating too much whenever you said that you weren't going to eat so much. Just say like you're on a fitness journey and like you overindulged. That guilt is not there to make you feel shameful. It's not there to make you feel bad. It's there to let you know like you said you were going to do something and you didn't, right? But
Hmm.
what happens is that we don't use our emotions like that. What starts to happen is we start to feel that guilt and we start spiraling out of control. We start identifying ourselves with that guilt instead of using it as a tool. Because what we
Hmm.
should do with it is we should feel that guilt and be like, okay, I'm feeling guilty because not because I'm an unhealthy person, not because I'm ugly, not because I'm fat, not because of all these things. I'm feeling guilty because I told myself I was going to do something and I didn't. Let me make a decision better next time so I don't feel
Hmm.
like this again. But
Mm.
we don't think about our emotions like that. What starts to happen is we feel guilty. So then we just start to spiral out of control. We start to either identify with it or start to just say, like, forget it,
Mm.
to all our dedications, and just keep eating or keep self-sabotaging. Or then we start to get depressed or start to feel, just let it just take over our entire lives.
Mhm.
And yeah, and when you don't understand how to use your emotions, it could be extremely miserable.
Yeah.
Because I know for
Mm.
me, like within my relationship, it was hard for me to enjoy almost anything. Like things could be perfect. Like I've traveled a lot in my life, and there's been times where I was like in Paris or in Greece or in these beautiful places, but I was emotionally codependent and I didn't know who I was. So my emotions were based off the people around me. It was based off my significant
Mhm.
other. And I was just on an emotional roller coaster all the time because I was one trying to figure out my emotions, but at the same time, I was basing my emotions off somebody else. And so it was
Mhm.
just like a whirlwind for disaster.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Okay.
mhm.
When you were speaking about our emotions and that they're indicators, you also said that there is actually a way to process them effectively so that we actually use them as a tool, like you said. So, is there some kind of steps that you follow in order to process your emotions effectively?
Yes, I do. And I'll share the book a little bit later on like how I
Mm-hmm.
learned how to process, because there's like a lot of different steps. There's not a lot of different steps, but there's like a general step, but you can do what you need to do to make those steps work for you. And so basically, the way that you process your emotions effectively is whenever you start to feel heavy emotions or low vibrational emotions that you don't want to identify with. If you're starting to feel unworthiness, if you're starting to feel fear of rejection or fear of abandonment, if you start to feel these really heavy feelings, the first thing that you need to do is understand that those feelings are there to tell you something. They're not there to punish you. They're not there to make you feel even worse. They're there to let you know that there's something that's going on within that situation that's
Mm-hmm.
out of alignment. And I was actually having to process my emotions today, which is really good. So today, actually, just to be really transparent, to walk you through in real time, I was feeling this just because of a couple situations in my life. I was feeling a fear of abandonment, and I was feeling a sense of unworthiness. But if I take it back, I realized that I didn't know that those were the feelings that I was feeling. I was feeling frustrated. I was feeling really anxious. I was feeling fear. I was feeling confused. So I was feeling those feelings, but I know the steps. I've been through it. So then I allowed myself to go through the process. So what I did was I understood, okay, so I know better. I know that I'm feeling all these feelings and all the things that I'm thinking, like all these horrible things that I'm thinking about me aren't true. So let me go process them. So today after work, I got off and I allowed myself to be with my emotions. I allowed myself to talk to myself. And that's one thing that we really have to do. Like, we don't allow ourselves to actually go in. And so I went for a walk and I just talked to myself. And I talked to myself like as if I'm talking to someone else. But I
Mm-hmm.
allow myself to really just talk to myself. And I talked to myself and I was walking and I was like, so what's up? What's up? Like, what's really, really up with like, why are you feeling like this? And so I allowed myself to articulate all the emotions that I was feeling. So I just sat there and I was like, okay, so you're feeling confused, you're feeling hurt, you're feeling really offended, you're feeling unworthy. And I just started like just listing all these emotions. And then I just started to allow myself to really ask myself why. And I just really sat there and I started journaling in my journal and asked myself, okay, like, why do you feel like what happened in this situation that connects you to feel unworthiness?
Mm-hmm.
And the more that I kept digging and digging, I understood why. So I was like, okay, I'm feeling these feelings because this and that. And this is where people start to make a mistake. They start to think that once they find out the reasons why, and it has to do with other people or it has to do with situations, they think that they need to go and fix those situations. Like they need to go tell someone something or tell someone not to talk to them a certain way or treat them a certain way or this and that. That's not what you're supposed to do. After you figure out why you're feeling what you're feeling, it's good to understand why you're feeling that. But now we have to, whenever you don't, the moment that you realize what you don't want, at that same time, you're realizing what you do want. So whenever you're feeling, so if I'm feeling confused, I'm feeling low, I'm feeling insecurity, I understand why I'm feeling those feelings, where they came from. And I'm like, okay, so I'm feeling these feelings because I'm believing certain things. I'm believing that I'm not worthy of this relationship, or I'm not worthy of this friendship, or I did something that was messed up and I can't come back from it. And I'm feeling guilty because I messed up my whole life and all this stuff. And so once I start to realize that, I'm like, okay, that's not the truth, because the truth is who I say I am. Just to backtrack, so I'm like not talking all over the place, but the first step is to understand how you're feeling, out your feelings. The second step is to be with your feelings. And then we go through the healing process, which is understanding the truth of who you are. So you understand what you're feeling, and when you're feeling fear, you're feeling guilt, you're feeling unworthiness, then you start to go back to the truth of who you are. So what is the truth of who you are? The truth is who you say you are. I don't want to identify with feeling guilty or feeling unworthy. That's not who God created me to be. God created me to be love and abundant and receive all the love and joy in the world. So since I know that's the truth, these beliefs that I have about these have to change. And so that's when you start going into, okay, what about me what about my beliefs do I need to change? That's when I finally laid my head back and I started to go towards the end of the process, which is telling myself the truth. So in the beginning, I was feeling guilty, I was feeling unworthy, and so the affirmations that came out through that were who is for me. Whatever is for me will never miss me. I am incredible. I am loved. I am wanted. I am forgiven. I am valuable. I am great. And then I start moving to the process of doing what I need to do to make those true for myself. If I'm feeling guilty or I'm feeling not confident, okay, what do I have to do to continue to build more confidence in myself? I have to honor my own commitments. And there's different process for different things that you want to feel, but the most important thing is to just identify what you want to feel. Because one thing that I learned is one lesson that I learned from my childhood to help me cope with all of it was I realized I spent so much time feeling what I didn't want. And I spent so much time in childhood trauma or feeling neglected and all this stuff. Instead of being woe is me, that sucks and that, I realized I was like, what? I spent so much time feeling what I don't want to feel that every time now when I get even close to that feeling, it's like red flags. Because I spent so much time knowing what I didn't want to feel like. So I know it so well. So since I know it so well, I can recognize it immediately. And I can immediately see, okay, I need to feel the opposite of this because I felt like that so well. So instead of just thinking that it was all bad, I'm was able to find the good in it. You know? So that's how you process your emotions. And I talk a lot. I'm so sorry. I don't know if you realize that, but I could talk.
It's brilliant. It's wonderful. Don't worry about it at all. Do you want to tell us where people can find you if they want to actually dig in a little bit deeper and find out more information about the power of who I am, the power of our emotions, and everything that you speak to? I know that you have a podcast as well. So maybe just tell people where they can find you and where they can get their hands on some more information.
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at Amber Breanna, on Facebook as well. It's all the same, Amber Breanna, and on YouTube, Amber Breanna. And my podcast is going to be called the Powerful Creators Podcast. I haven't launched it yet, but I will be launching it in about 3 to 4 weeks. So you have to watch out for that. But yeah, everything is just at Amber Breanna.
Perfect. And we'll share that obviously as well in the notes so people can follow you. What are some of your favorite books that you've read on the power of our emotions that you would like to share with the audience? And yeah, some of the books that you've enjoyed reading that might be helpful for us to dig in as well.
So last year, these two books right here, The Amazing Power of Deliberate Intent. It's by Abraham Hicks, and you just have to read the book. It's like a lot, but it's called The Amazing Power of Deliberate Intent, Living the Art of Allowing. So this book goes into specific detail of who we are, who we created to be, our amazing power of living extremely intentionally. And what I love about it though is that it breaks down your life in every single area, and it gives you examples on how to manifest and like how to ask for certain things in your area.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is where it talks about whenever you see my videos and you talk about like vibrational frequency, like that's where I've learned that. They talk about directly the emotional guidance system, and they talk
Mm-hmm.
about how to just be able to raise our emotions and like different beliefs and different thoughts. But what I love about this book though is that it's extremely detailed. There's a chapter like on your work environment. There's a chapter on the government, like what you believe about the government. There's a chapter on like your relationships, like just it's really specific, and they have different exercises that you can do to be able to raise your vibration. So one, like for example, just two different exercises would be whenever you're in the process of processing your emotions, they give you an example of just writing like a book, like having a book of positive aspects where you just have a notebook and you start writing all the positive aspects. And then you have another one of just like having a better thought feeling. But it just they give you like almost 50 different exercises to be able to raise your emotions. And so it's just extremely detailed, and I can like it's really dense. Like each paragraph, you could just ponder on a paragraph for a month because that's a really good book. I really love them. It's amazing. And, and then the other book that's really good is The Mastery of Love.
My all-time favorite.
This book is so good. This book helped me so much last year. I loved it. It was so gentle with me. This is where I really started to understand the truth of who I was. Like in the back, it says, I remember I highlighted it, but it was like this one page I'll never forget. But I love it. And I'll never forget also to one liberating passage that I read that I can like probably spit verbatim, but it just talked about how karma is just this idea like in your mind, and how if you believe that karma is out to get you, then it's out to get you. But if it's not, but if you don't believe it, then it's not. And so it really started to hone in on how everything is really in your mind. And I don't know, I feel like me like growing up the way that I did, like being extremely codependent and growing up in like in a religious household, I had a lot of guilt. Like so much guilt was instilled in me. And so I had so much fear thinking that all my past mistakes were going to come just take everything away from me. And that fear was holding me bondage for ever. And so once I read that, it was so liberating because I was like, what? Nothing is out to get me? No one's. But yeah, so these two books, I've honestly, they're probably the only books I've read all the way through this whole year.
Awesome. I haven't read the Abraham Hicks book yet, but I will put that on my reading list. But I definitely know that The Mastery of Love is one of those books that you can read over and over again. And every time you read it, there's something new that you somehow strikes you. Yeah, it's a wonderful book. So thank you for those book recommendations. And thank you for taking the time to share with us. And I feel like we may have you as a guest on the show again one time, because there's so much things that you spoke on that I think it might be worth having you back at some point and speaking on some other things as well. But thank you so much for taking the time today.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much.